topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, good afternoon, America. Bill Martinez here. Great to have you with us. And we've got our next guest, an old friend. We've known each other for a long time, and we've been able to enjoy some great conversations about our country and especially our sovereignty. He's the author of this new book called Indictment, Prosecuting the Chinese Communist Party and Friends for Crimes Against America, China, and the World. And as you're sensing, and you're exactly right, your eyes are telling you the truth, and everything that you sense is that America's sovereignty is in jeopardy. And the Sovereignty Coalition is committed to fighting back against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Sounds so familiar to the oath of office I took when I entered the military. And it is, I will tell you, an oath that never expires. He's the executive chairman, founder of the Center for Security Policy, and author of this book, The Indictment. Frank Gaffney joins us now. Frank, how are you? Good to have you with us.
I couldn't be better now that I'm joined with you, Bill, and thank you for your service and sacrifice on behalf of our Constitution and its defense against, as you said, all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Well, Frank, you have been a fighter for our Constitution and for these enemies, foreign. It's in our DNA. I guess maybe we can be grateful to our parents because that's the way they raised us, right?
Well, I'd like to think that actually successive generations before them did the same. I mean, the thing that is so troubling in a way about our generation, our time, is that we may be slipping. Our friend and inspiration, Ronald Reagan, used to say that every generation faces an existential threat to freedom, and it has to be fought for. It can't be simply passed on to the next generation. We must make sure that it is preserved in our time so that we can allow them to do the same. And this is, in fact, the inspiration for our book, is that this is the moment when the greatest existential threat to freedom of all, the Chinese Communist Party, especially aided and abetted by its friends, including in this country, must be tackled and countered and decisively defeated.
Yeah, without a doubt. And speaking of which, of course, of China, the latest news that you're reporting on is a spy base in Cuba. What is going on here?
Well, the spy operation, which is a signal intelligence collection facility, has actually been in place for some time at a town called Lourdes. The Soviet Union constructed it in the first instance. The Russians have had their economic difficulties, so at some point the Chinese began operating there as well. I think what's really now in prospect is they're going to greatly ramp up that operation, new facility, additional capabilities, some of which we're hearing may involve offensive capabilities, not just sort of passively hoovering up everything that goes across microwaves and cell towers and the like over much of our country, which is an incredible opportunity for them to collect intelligence. But it could be they're capable of actually attacking us from there as well.
Well, this is like 60 years deja vu with the Cuban nuclear crisis in a sense, but even more so because China has already built up an infrastructure, as you report in your book here, an indictment, Frank. They have an infrastructure all around the world. Their tentacles are far reaching. And no doubt America is a primary target for the communist Chinese.
Well, there's absolutely no doubt about the latter point. And yes, they have been beavering away for decades, really, building up a kind of colonial infrastructure and empire. And it's taken on additional urgency for them, I think, in the past 6 or 7 years under Xi Jinping. But it's been developing for some time. And by the way, the base 90 miles off our shore is not the only one in immediate proximity. They've been creating facilities in the Bahamas as well, and then throughout much of Latin America beyond. And all of those are bases or prospective bases, including ports, by the way, that are capable of accommodating their carrier battle groups.
Exactly.
So they're taking, as always, the long-term view, but they're assiduously creating conditions that will enable them to wage, well, a world war against us, the old-fashioned kind, only, again, on steroids.
Yeah, they're kind of setting their ducks up in a row is the way it looks like to us, Frank. And whether we're talking about police stations, 6 police stations of all things in the United States, their capturing of a farmland, something I was reading the other day, something like they in Russia, even Iran, combined have something like 400,000 acres of farmland in the United States. I mean, and then we're not even talking about the elite captured. That is the politicians who have been compromised and are beholden because they've been getting, let's say paybacks.
Well, it's not just politicians, unfortunately. They happen to be a prominent aspect of this problem, as you say, of elite capture. That's the Chinese term for it. Joe Biden, of course, being the preeminent example, the poster boy, if you will, of the operation. Right. But it's also true of, our financial sector. In fact, much of what we've just talked about, that Belt and Road Initiative, buying up farmland, building up their military, running slave labor operations, crimes against humanity, the rest of it has been made possible, I believe, by our own money. That most of us are unaware has been migrating from Wall Street, where our pension funds or mutual funds and index funds, what have you, are putting it, only to find that they've put it instead into Chinese companies, again, mostly without our knowledge. But it's also true of business leaders more generally, this elite capture, academics, media personalities, and not least, of course, Hollywood. And you put and basketball stars and God knows who else.
Go right on down the line.
You go down the line. It's a comprehensive effort to suborn the people we entrust to lead us in all of these areas.
And the thing is you wonder who's minding the store here, Frank, because the Chinese have been able to use our Constitution against us. They find ways to get into the Treasury by getting federal subsidies that work against us and our sovereignty. It's like, wait a minute. I mean, I thought we paid these bureaucrats a lot of money to protect us.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's not just federal money. I've been working with people up in the state of Michigan, where Governor Whitmer has been giving the Chinese Communist Party's front operation known as Goshen $700 million in subsidies to open up, wait for it, a lithium-ion battery plant for vehicles up there. Lithium-ion, of course, being something that they're now getting access to in enormous quantities, a critical ingredient for much of this so-called green energy stuff, where in Afghanistan, where we have essentially put them in business with the Taliban. And the prospects of having problems in our own country, not least from lithium-ion dust and other pollution, is very real. And it goes to this question you asked a moment ago about what's up with having our farmland, having any of our real estate, really, under the control of what is our mortal enemy, the Chinese Communist Party.
Just doesn't make sense at any level, Frank Gaffney. We're talking with Frank Gaffney, and we're going to be getting deeper into his book titled Indictment. Stay with us. We're going to go to a quick break. We'll be right back with Frank right after this.
The FDA issued an import alert for U.S. Customs authorities to detain illegal, disposable, flavored nicotine e-cigarettes from foreign countries, including China. Rich Marianos is a former assistant director for the ATF, now with Georgetown University.
These disposable e-cigarettes have become a real problem. It's encouraging to see the FDA act at the border, but our kids need them to take the next steps and remove these foreign disposables from the store shelves. They have the authority, and now it's time to act.
Sponsored by the Border Security Alliance.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Deutsch, and if you or your business owe money to the IRS, I've got great news for you. Tax laws have changed. Billions of dollars are earmarked for IRS Fresh Start programs. And if you qualify, you can literally save tens of thousands of dollars. Listen, I know what you're going through. Call me if you want to speak with a tax attorney or tax professional for free.
800-247-1498. That's 800-247-1498.
Attention timeshare owners. Tired of the financial stress? Were you misled by the salesperson? Don't or can't use your timeshare anymore? If any of these apply to you, then you may qualify for timeshare cancellation and get the relief you need now. Timeshare Defense Attorneys is the #1 affordable fixed fee legal solution in the country with an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. That's certainly better than my grades. They even offer a 100% client satisfaction guarantee. Let one of their experienced lawyers evaluate your case and explain the process. If they take you as a client, they'll work on your case until it's resolved in your favor. Guaranteed. Expect great service and a close working relationship with your lawyer, keeping you informed every step of the way, protecting your rights, interests, and even your credit. It's that simple. Even a kid like me could understand it. The consultation is free. Call today.
800-296-1332. 800-296-1332. That's 800-296-1332.
Would you like to hear better for as little as 10 cents a day? Now you can with the all-new Audion hearing aids. The average hearing aid lasts about 3 years. Ours, at only $99 a pair, means you're paying as little as 10 cents a day to hear better. And to make things even better, we'll give you a 45-day money-back guarantee. Skip the doctor and get hearing aids delivered straight to your door. We've eliminated all the middlemen to offer you a factory direct price of only $99 a pair. Join over 300,000 people just like you who took advantage of our 45-day trial offer. Now you can hear better too for just 10 cents a day. Call now and order your $99 pair of Audion hearing aids with a 45-day money-back guarantee. Plus, get free 3 to 5 day shipping.
800-577-5319. 800-577-5319. 800-577-5319. That's 800-577.
Back, Bill Martinez here. Hey, by the way, real quick, I want to thank you for your support. Our listeners have just been absolutely phenomenal in supporting our campaign for truth and liberty. And if you go to our website at BillMartinezShow.com, click on the donate button if you're so inclined. Any donation, look at, we get so many donations, $5, $10, and we're so grateful for anything that you can do to support this program. This is what has allowed us to expand into this new venture that you're seeing right now in this television podcast, where we're able to bring on these great guests that have been part of our daily show that airs Monday through Friday, 9 to noon Eastern. And then we're able to bring them on because we believe that the topics are something that you want to have more knowledge about, be able to understand more in depth with. And so there's nothing, we're not about 8-second sound bites. We believe in having an intelligent electorate, because that's what is at the heartbeat. And that is what is so critical to the continuance of this great American idea. So go to BillMartinezShow.com. You're going to notice Hill of Hope. We're partnering with them so that it makes your donation tax deductible. Is that cool? We love it. So just click on it, whatever donate. Like I said, $5, $10. We're appreciative for whatever it is that God places on your heart to support this ever-growing and expanding enterprise to get the truth out there and to, and to renew this great country of ours. Frank Gaffney is back with us, continues with us. His book, The Indictment, Prosecuting the Chinese Communist Party and Friends for Crimes Against America, China, and the World. Frank, before we get into the book specifically, I do want to talk to you about what's going on, this latest news break. with attack on Israel that America appears to be very complicit and joining with Iran, to come against our friends, Israel. What's going on?
Well, could I just take a moment to endorse your appeal to your audience to support what you're doing
very
here,
kind,
Bill?
Frank. Very kind.
I just want to say, I mean, I do a lot of shows and I have a couple myself, but the value added of this program, Bill, with your expertise, with your background, particularly in your other programming, is incalculably important because it does allow us, as you say, to address topics like the ones we're discussing now, and related ones that are just popping up in a way that gives people insights. And I just couldn't say how strongly I agree with your main point. The founders of our country presumed that it would be governed by people who know enough to know what's in their vital interest, and would elect people to represent them on that basis. They actually very sharply delimited, as you know, Bill, that people who would be able to vote for that reason. At the time, it was just not just white men of a certain age, but also people who owned property, who had skin in the game, in other words.
Exactly.
We've come a long way from there, but it makes all the more important what you're doing. And I just want to say to your audience especially, please support this vital work. And thank you for allowing me to be part of it. To the question about Iran and Israel, the Biden administration has made no secret of their belief over the time it's been in office. And I really consider it to be the third Obama-Biden term, by the way.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Really going
I agree.
back to the first two, that the relationship with Israel was, if anything, sort of an unpleasant reality, but not something they particularly fancied. Whereas the opportunity to have some new and very intimate relationship with the mullahs of Iran was something they were all about and are today. And as a result, what we're seeing is the Biden administration has been publicly it seems in small ways, but I think they're consequential, and certainly signaling in big ways their support for what amounts to an insurgency in Israel, an effort to literally overthrow the government of Israel, in no small measure brought to the people there by senior former officials, including two former prime ministers, I think two or three leaders of the Israel Defense Forces, at least one Supreme Court Chief Justice, and those are all legitimating what's being done here, and giving encouragement to those who are not only calling for the overthrow of Bibi Netanyahu's coalition government, recently elected with a Democratic majority, but actually saying that there should be a civil war to accomplish this, and even the assassination of the prime minister and members of his cabinet. This is unconscionable, and the idea that the United States government has anything to do with this is reprehensible in the extreme, and I think strategically of the malfeasant. But it's encouraging the Biden team's friends in Iran to think, I believe, that they can act with impunity against Israel now, which is, again, strategically disastrous, obviously for the people of Israel, but I believe for us as well.
You know, Frank, I was a little confused, frankly, with the relationship with Biden and Netanyahu. I mean, you mentioned the Obama years. Gosh, I remember it was quite stark when Benjamin Netanyahu was almost snuck through the back door. I mean, he wasn't respected. I believe
with contempt.
Right, exactly. Really? And so it's almost like today they look at Benjamin Netanyahu as if he's wearing a MAGA hat or something.
Yeah. No, they hate him. They hate him, and they hate the course correction that he's trying to make with respect to Israel's policies. And in particular, the thing that is infuriating the most is that Benjamin Netanyahu sought a mandate from the Israeli people to reform a runaway, rogue judiciary. I mean, the whole idea of checks and balances that we're familiar with in our Constitution has been completely thrown out of the window by this same Chief Justice, a fellow by the name of Barak, as I recall, who essentially said,
interesting, right?
We're going to tell you what laws you can pass, and we'll uphold them and we'll reject them, or we'll just write our own. And that creates an opportunity for the democracy to be restored to Israel. And the left doesn't want any part of that. And their friends in the United States are helping them try to countermand or, in fact, destroy democracy in Israel. And they mustn't be allowed to get away with it, especially with our help.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, of all people, here's our number one ally in the Middle East.
Yeah, maybe worldwide.
Right, exactly. This is unconscionable. But this has been, and I think I don't know, it's like everything that has to do with Democratic Party and Joe Biden and Barack Obama is that people's eyes are slowly but surely waking up to this reality, Frank, because you can't even imagine that they would do this. And I think, I was surprised at the lack of interest and inquiry from the mainstream media to note how Benjamin Netanyahu was being treated during the Obama years.
Right. Well, again, this is where you come in, Bill, and those of us, offering insights and most especially analysis that our folks are not getting otherwise. And that's partly because the left controls the media, and the Chinese Communist Party, by the way, controls a good chunk of it. And they want to suppress this kind of information. I believe you're right that Americans' eyes are opening, but still too few of us really understand what we're seeing.
Exactly.
It's like the old story about a group of blind people trying to figure out what an elephant is. One's got the trunk, one's got the tail, one's got the tusk. But the truth of the matter is, once we start having the dots connected, and if I may say, that's what we're trying to do with this book, The Indictment, is connect the dots so that people can not only make sense of it, but can exercise what our founders gave us as our constitutional right, as well as responsibility, which is to get those representing us to make the sorts of course corrections that are vitally needed at this moment on so many of these issues, domestic and foreign, by the way.
We've got more to hear from Frank Gaffney. Stay with us right after this.
Do you have heart failure and often hear,
"Those stomach issues ruined your birthday"?
"You're too tired to play catch, Grandpa."
Sweetie, you haven't touched your tools since the carpal tunnel syndrome diagnosis.
If these seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, talk to your cardiologist and ask about transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy, or ATTR-CM, a rare and underdiagnosed disease that gets worse over time. Learn more at connecttoyourheart.com. That's connecttoyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-699-0358. 800-699-0358. 800-699-0358. That's 800-699-0358.
President Biden recently released a massive $6 trillion budget, the largest budget in U.S. history. And guess who pays the bill? That's right, you, the American taxpayer. American citizens and business owners will be paying more taxes. That's a fact. And if you owe back taxes, they will be coming after you to collect payments. In fact, President Biden also hired thousands more IRS agents to go after you. If you got a letter from the IRS and you know you owe back taxes or you haven't filed in years, don't put your head in the sand. Call us today. We've saved our customers millions of tax dollars. One quick, free phone call will show you how we can reduce your past tax bill and save you thousands. Guaranteed, or you pay nothing. Call now.
800-932-1597. 800-932-1597. That's 800-932-1597. Paid for by the Tax Helpline. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-699-0358. 800-699-0358. 800-699-0358. That's 800-699-.
Back with you. Bill Martinez here with Frank Gaffney, the executive chair and founder of the Center for Security Policy, author of the new book, The Indictment, Prosecuting the Chinese Communist Party and Friends for Crimes Against America, China, and the World. Frank, the indictment, of course, this week we've heard a lot about the indictment. We had an indictment take place in Miami, but the difference between Jack Smith's indictment and this one here is the facts that you lay out in your book are empirical evidence that what the Chinese has done. And like any indictment that begins with a grand jury, you have done the hard work and you've laid out the case. And what I'm hearing from people who've read this book, they tell me over and over again what a service this is to them. And they say, Bill, I didn't know this. I said, this is why you need to read the book and you need to get it to the rest of your friends, because we need an intellectual electorate. We have been purposely dumbed down and manipulated by the bureaucrats that when they scare the holy what have you out of us, which they did for 2.5 years, it gives them room to assume power and to do things that violate our constitutional principles, right?
Absolutely right. In fact, the fourth charge in this indictment, this bill of particulars, if you will,
yes.
Speaks directly to that point. As you know, it talks about the biological warfare attack that the Chinese communists waged against us as an example of the war crimes we've been subjected to by these guys for decades. And again, going back to what we were talking about, I'm not sure whether it's an intellectual audience. We need people with common sense. Unfortunately, Americans are imbued with it, I think, in abundance. Right. It's just that it has been dumbed down or suppressed or worse. It goes back to what we talked about earlier, Bill, about the elite capture. The people that we have entrusted with the responsibility to run things, a political system, our businesses, academia, whatever. And we did so on the basis that they would look out for our interests, especially those we elected to represent us. They've been letting us down. I think in part because it serves their interests, having been captured, not to have anybody alive to the implications of that, especially if you think about it. And this just, it kind of makes people's heads explode. We may well be, as a result of these decades of unrestricted warfare of the pre-kinetic kind, as they call it, at the cusp of a shooting war the old-fashioned kind of war with the Chinese Communist Party. I think all of this has emboldened Xi Jinping enormously. And it's, by the way, not just aimed at Taiwan. I think
Taiwan,
it's
exactly.
aimed at us as well. But here's the kicker. Could it possibly be that in such a time as this, with that in prospect, the commander-in-chief of the United States military would actually be a controlled asset of the Chinese Communist Party, as one of my intelligence officer friends has called him? I think that's intolerable. And I hope that
look what he said. Frank, I'm sorry to interrupt you for just a second. But look at what General Milley said. He said during the Trump, the waning months, that if he sensed anything was going, he was going to communicate to the communist Chinese, give them a heads up.
Right.
How is that not treasonous?
It is treasonous. But unfortunately, it's just one example. And I think there are large numbers of them in this book. And by the way, just to your audience, because it's obviously following you, it's pretty clued up. And whether it's intellectual or whether it's commonsensical or whether it's just plain smart, I commend them. But what this book has been made possible by is a series of webinars. Some 70 of them at the time we went to press. I think it's up to about 100 of them all told.
Wow.
That have drilled down on two really critical issues. One is, what is unrestricted warfare? What do the Chinese mean when they say that's what they're going to engage in against us? How have they waged it? What has the toll that's been taken been? And secondly, who has been helping them do it? Right here in the United States. And once you have your head sort of around that's what we're up against, that's what is being done to us, then understanding this is a series of, well, crimes against humanity, yes, but also war crimes against our country that have to be prosecuted, at least, as I say, in the court of public opinion. Then you start looking for what we have 20 specific items listed in the section about action steps that are vitally required as part of that course correction that I talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's drill down a little bit on the 20 action steps. And, I'm a Pareto principle guy. I believe in the Pareto principle that, 20% will give you 80% of the yield. Mm-hmm. What are the most critical things that, maybe represent that low hanging fruit that just about most of our listeners and every American citizen say, Frank, I could do that.
Yeah. Well, they can do it, I think, to some extent in their own right. They can help with it for sure. Right. You mentioned, getting this book not only read themselves, but also to their friends and to those elected representatives, by the way. Right. But here's the first order business. We have to understand that we are at war. Not because we wanted to be, but because the Chinese Communist Party is determined to govern the world and has to take us out to do that. Right. Once you understand that, then the first of the action items that flow from it is we have to get on a war footing if we're to deter this thing from getting even worse and hopefully limit the damage that's currently being done.
Well, and just this added point real quick, because when you say get on a war footing, this is so important because this is where America made a mistake in Ukraine. We saw what the Russians were doing. They weren't going out there for a weenie roast. In order to execute a military mission, you have to have a supply chain. There are obvious movements and things that come into place. Right. And so what you're saying is, look, you got to think about it, right? So where's our supply chain to defend us and to reinforce what needs to be reinforced so that we can defeat this enemy?
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what we talked about a moment ago. Some in those elites, particularly in the business sector, the financial sector, that have had an interest in making money with and in China, have betrayed us by creating supply chain dependencies on everything from medicine to chips to flat screens to now increasingly energy. Because we've decided we don't want to be energy independent. We want to rely on them for energy. I mean, these are things that we cannot possibly survive without. And by virtue of them being supply chains from China, we will almost certainly be denied them. at some point, if not in the very near future, under very bad circumstances. But the third and the key of all of the action items that I think we've got to fix, because everything else gets easier if we do. You said the 20% solution here. We have to remove from positions of power and influence those who are working for the Chinese Communist Party, those friends
those
in
that are captured.
subtitle, those who are captured
right.
cannot be anywhere near places like defending our country, because they cannot be relied upon to do so faithfully.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. So 20% of these 20 action items can give us 80% of the yield. And it's amazing because it's like it's snowballed. It has its own inertia, and it'll carry us over that critical area that we need to be in order that we can be in the position to reclaim our country, right, Frank?
Amen. And that's really what's at the heart of what's at stake here.
Yes.
It is our country. And as I said, going back to Ronald Reagan, that famous line about every generation facing an existential threat, he finished it with this phrase, which I think is so compelling, and it certainly has imprinted on me, and it has guided us in this book. And I'm sure you know it, Bill. He said, if we do not do our part in defending our country against an existential threat to freedom in our time and pass it on to our children to do the same, we will spend our sunset years, as he put it, telling our children and our children's children what it was like to live in America when men were free. Wow. I don't want to live that way, and I don't think you do either.
No, not at all. It sounds like a pathetic scene from the play Camelot, Frank Gaffney. Got to go to break. We've got more from Frank. We're talking more about his book, The Indictment, right after this. Stay with us.
I am a non-attorney spokesperson representing a team of lawyers who help people that have been injured or wronged. Have you been diagnosed with cancer? Do you use pesticides in your job? Specifically Roundup. Roundup, made by Monsanto, contains a chemical called glyphosate, which has been linked to cancer. If you've used Roundup and you have cancer, you may be entitled to a cash award. Over $10 billion has been set aside to pay users of Roundup who've been diagnosed with cancer. Time is almost running out to file your claim. So if you've been diagnosed with cancer and you've used Roundup, call the legal helpline now. You could receive a free cash award and have your medical expenses covered. And time to file is almost gone, so please call right now.
800-890-7088. 800-890-7088. 800-890-7088. That's 800-890-7088.
Would you like to hear better for as little as 10 cents a day? Now you can with the all-new Audion hearing aids. The average hearing aid lasts about 3 years. Ours, at only $99 a pair, means you're paying as little as 10 cents a day to hear better. And to make things even better, we'll give you a 45-day money-back guarantee. Skip the doctor and get hearing aids delivered straight to your door. We've eliminated all the middlemen to offer you a factory direct price of only $99 a pair. Join over 300,000 people just like you who took advantage of our 45-day trial offer. Now you can hear better too for just 10 cents a day. Call now and order your $99 pair of Audion hearing aids with a 45-day money-back guarantee. Plus, get free 3 to 5 day shipping.
800-577-5319. 800-577-5319. 800-577-5319. That's 800-577-5319. Has your heater or air conditioner busted? Appliance broken? Computer crashed? Then you need an ARW home warranty. Home system and appliance repairs and replacements can cause stress and cost you thousands of dollars per year. With an A-plus BBB rating and a top-rated home warranty company on Consumer Affairs and Trustpilot, ARW Home provides superior service, featuring the industry's lowest service call fee. ARW Home has warranty plans that cover your kitchen and laundry appliances, heating and air conditioning systems, electrical and plumbing systems, and much more. Call 800-559-7562 to customize your plan. Plus, ARW has partnered with Azurian to protect your new and used tablets, laptops, TVs, and other home tech from accidental damage and wear and tear. All plans come with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Call 800-559-7562. That's 800-559-7562.
Our conversation with Frank Gaffney continues as he's mentioned, a lot about what we've been discussing really is common sense. And I think this is what is really messing up with the heads of American citizens today is going, why would we give up energy independence? What is the intellectual result of opening up our borders? What is the benefit for America to anger allies? What is the benefit for us to leave Afghanistan in the manner in which we left? And let me say, what is the benefit to we the people when you have the sons and daughters of some key elected officials like our president, Nancy Pelosi, the former leader of the House, Mitt Romney, the senator, John Kerry, former Secretary of State. That's just to name these four. What are the odds of four people all having their children working for Ukrainian gas companies? Frank Gaffney, I'll tell you, common sense would say there's a reason why he had to take us off of oil. And I believe it was to advance his benefit with the Ukrainian oil companies and probably other oil companies yet to be determined and discovered, that they have ties and capturings not only upon the elected officials, but on the princelings, their children that Miranda Devine talks about, right?
You're so right. Let me just put a gloss on what you just said, which I think is incredibly insightful and important. I believe, Bill, that if you look at every policy of the Biden administration, or if you will, the Obama-Biden administration 3.0,
right,
it's got two things in common. Every one of them has been bad for America, and every one of them has benefited the Chinese Communist Party. Now, there may be others who've been benefiting too, Burisma's, Ukraine oligarchs and so on. But fundamentally, I think whatever is bad for America and benefits bad guys elsewhere is ultimately beneficial to the Chinese Communist Party as well. And you're right. Again, to the extent that Americans have the common sense and the open-mindedness and frankly, the comfort level to think about these kinds of problems, because it's becoming increasingly uncomfortable to think about them, let alone talk about them, to say nothing of challenge them, because that gets you censored. That may get you the January 6th treatment if you're not careful. You could be a domestic terrorist if you even think these impolitic thoughts. You're not with the program. It certainly can get you purged from the United States military. That's for sure. So you put it all together and you realize that if, let's just do a thought experiment. If somebody like Xi Jinping had his way and wanted to have people in the United States government doing his bidding, is there anything that Joe Biden is doing that wouldn't be on that list?
Exactly.
And honestly, I can't think of a thing.
Yeah. It's a designed infrastructure that's been well established, as you point out, Frank. This has been going on for decades. This didn't happen just, in the recent years. This is going on for a long time. This is a progressive, slow march that Xi Jinping and the communists, they knew this wasn't going to be an overnight deal, especially with the ambition that they wanted to do a regime change without a single shot. And how close are they right now in being able to affect that?
Well, they did it already.
Yeah.
They took out Donald Trump with that biological warfare attack, I would argue. And again, I mentioned earlier, Bill, and I just want to present it to your audience as a resource. The 70 or so webinars that I talked about that went into this book are all available for free at presentdangerchina.org. In fact, if you buy the book, in the back, we've got all of them listed and QR codes
Right.
that will allow you to pop them up. But the main thing is that you can get a graduate level course, maybe a PhD in the
Exactly.
problem that we're talking about here, just by exposing yourself to the full content of these really remarkable. I'm a little close to it. I moderate them all, but I got to tell you, I've learned a tremendous amount from the experts we've tapped. And once you've got this information, it's like the old Rorschach test. Once
Right.
you see that that's not a young lady, that's an old woman
You're
in a
right.
chair, you can't unsee it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
once you know what we are confronting, once you understand that we are at war, again, not because we've sought it, but because the Chinese communists have had it as their objective from the get-go, then you realize that we cannot continue to pretend that everything is okay, that even if it doesn't make sense, or even if it's actually a little worrying, that it's something that we don't need to worry ourselves about. Wrong. We have to. And more to the point, we do need to engage those. As I said earlier, you can do some things about this yourself just by getting actively involved and getting your friends, your family, your business associates, your community engaged. But at some point, there are things that we have to do as a nation. And that requires all of us pulling together, and especially those we elect to represent and lead us.
Exactly. One at a time. And, be that change that you want to see.
Amen.
I like what Jordan Peterson had to say, Frank, is that we can become so ideologically fixed that we render ourselves stupid. We let go of common sense. And I see that disease that's happening. And I feel for people, because we've all been there at times. When we get on the other side of it, we go, how did we get that? Why did we insist on our rightness as opposed to objective truth? But look, I have a lot of faith in the American people, as you do. The interaction is rich, and we're getting there. I often tell my children, experience defines preference. We've had a lot of experience, and I think that we need to come back. One of the other key things that is coming to mind is we need to study the legitimate. We need to follow the lead of bankers. I tell people on the show, bankers, when they're looking at money, they don't study the counterfeit. They study the legitimate, so that when the counterfeit comes, it comes out so clear. Like you said, it's just so obvious. And that's what we need to do as a country, is study the legitimate of democracy and this democratic republic to such a degree that anything else that comes in through the side door, we're going to kick it out and not pay attention to it, because we know it doesn't have veritas. There's no benefit, for we the people. Right.
This is such an important insight. And could I just, sort of do a variation on the theme?
Yeah.
I think that one of the most important parts of the strategy that my former boss executed brilliantly, and I was able to play a small role in it, I'm proud to say, in terms of taking down his time's existential threat to freedom, namely the Soviet Union, was the emphasis he placed on delegitimating the Soviet Communist Party and the evil empire that it misruled. And having done that, I think he's shown the way for us in our time to help demonstrate to the people of China, with whom I think we have no quarrel. In fact, they've been even more badly treated by the Chinese Communist Party than we have. By some estimates, 100 million of them. And when I say them, I mean not just the Chinese Han, I mean as well the Tibetans, the Uyghurs, the Southern Mongolians, the Hong Kongers that they've enslaved. But most of them are Han Chinese, by the way. 100 million. And by the way, that doesn't even count the 400 million that the Chinese Communist Party boasts of murdering in the womb as part of their population control. There's never been a tyrannical regime on the face of the earth. You could put all of the rest of them together and they don't compare to the murderous character of this one. But the point is, the Chinese Communist Party knows that the people of China have to be brutally repressed in order to continue to tolerate, or at least allow them to run the country.
Exactly.
That is a basis upon which we can, as I say, make common cause. And the way to do this, I think, in our time, is to describe the Chinese Communist Party as what they are, which is really not so much a political party or even a government. It's a transnational criminal organization.
Yeah.
Hence, it is subject to prosecution for war crimes, yes, as well as crimes against humanity, at the very least in the court of public opinion. But hopefully, if we pursue this properly, they're designated as such, and then there become vehicles like, the RICO statutes that can be used actually by individual citizens to bring causes of action against the Chinese and their enablers in our own country. They're accomplices, after all, in such criminal activity.
Well, you're exactly right, Frank, because a majority of the American people are going, when are we going to hold China accountable for COVID? Frank Gaffney is the founder and executive chair of the Center for Security Policy, a nonpartisan organization that champions peace through strength. He's the vice chair of the Committee on the Present Danger of China and the host of Securing America with Frank Gaffney. It's a daily TV program on the Real America's Voice Network. You're also heard on radio as well. So you're everywhere.
Well, it may feel that way sometimes, but hopefully I'm where it matters. And thanks to you, I'm on a program that matters a lot. And I appreciate so much your time, Bill.
Well, God bless you, Frank Gaffney. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being with us. It's an honor to have you here on our show. That's going to be a wrap for us. I do want to thank Frank Gaffney for joining us. I want to thank you for joining us and listening in and joining in on this mighty Martinez movement to save this country. Until tomorrow, take care. Godspeed, my friends.